afternoon or good evening, everybody, or good morning if you're joining. Wherever you're joining, welcome to this global webinar on sustainable nutrition. Let's take another minute just to allow people to connect. This is a slow process, but it's like entering a room. So imagine we are finally getting together again in a room and people are entering, shaking hands, hugging, kissing, and we're about to start. This will happen, and this will happen sometime soon. But we still have to be good before this happens. It's 3 o'clock here in Rome and Central Europe, and we have a global panel from worldwide actually. So it's a really authentic global panel. Okay, so let's start. We're taking the minute. I see still people are joining. We have more than 100 people that have subscribed, so I assume they will sooner or later sign up. And I want to thank who is already here, taking the challenge of of a Friday afternoon or Friday morning if you're in South America or in America, and actually evening in the other side of the world, so in Asia. Welcome here to the towards zero deforestation supply chains. Can we make a difference? This is a part of a series of webinars that with the Sustainable Nutrition Platform organized by Competere is holding. We started back last year, and this is already our 11th event that we organize, our 11th discussion. And a few weeks ago, we met with different players from NGOs and from the European Commission to discuss the state of deforestation and what is happening with deforestation, what are the numbers and what are the drivers of deforestation. And here we come instead with the players, the supply chain, the one that in a way are accused to cause deforestation, but also from our side, the one that are actually today fighting to reduce deforestation, protect biodiversity, and enhancing sustainability. In the meanwhile, we were expecting the European Commission to deliver a few documents, one on due diligence that are telling us what should be or what should the next legislation look like. And unfortunately, the European Commission, probably because of the COVID or probably because actually there is a lot to discuss, hasn't published anything, and we got a bit frustrated. We were expecting to have something to read during the summer, but here it's not. So we just want to tell some of the people from the European Commission that are following us, our usual followers, and thank you for joining us, that we would like to engage more producing countries, because what comes through Europe, what comes to Europe has been or is usually produced somewhere else, and we need to engage all the actors along the supply chain. And there should be a big engagement with producing countries. So I hope that these few arguments will be included in the coming documents from the European Commission. And we have to thank Europe for taking this very ambitious step toward full sustainability and toward the idea of balancing the human action and the environment on the other side. And we here at the Sustainable Nutrition, our goal is to find policies that allow to produce more food, but in a sustainable way. So this today we put together a very beautiful panel with great global speakers that represent actually very different supply chains that are exporting or actually importing inside Europe a lot of tons of products that are being produced more or less sustainably. But certainly these organizations are doing a great work and a great effort to reduce the impact on forests, and so reducing deforestation. And as I said, protecting biodiversity, and at the same time, and a big effort to enhance sustainability. So here we are with us. We have Daphne Hameeteman from Amsterdam, working at Wilmar, particularly working on sustainability at Wilmar. Wilmar is a worldwide leader and one of the major producer of oils and fats, based in Singapore. Still in Singapore, we have Salvatore Pinizzotto, who is the general director of the the International Rubber Study Group, so dealing with rubber. And then we can move east to the South America, where we have in Colombia Raul Restrepo, who is working with the coffee industry and therefore with the supply chain of coffee, and represents the Federation of Coffee Producers in Colombia. and then coming instead this way, still going east, actually, coming back to Europe and specifically to Italy, we have Massimo Ramunni, who is the deputy director of Assocarta, that is the alliance and the trade association of paper producers. So we have oils and fats, we have rubber, we have coffee, we have paper. So I would say some of the biggest and the largest and most produced commodities around the world. We're not going to talk about the price of commodities. That would be an interesting discussion, but we're actually going to talk how companies are and supply chain players are contributing to the reduction of deforestation. Often, these organizations are accused of causing deforestation, and in the past, this unfortunately has happened. Today, they are sometimes aggressively be attacked because they are not doing too much to reduce deforestation and protect biodiversity. But here at the Sustainable Nutrition Platform, we like to bring a different perspective, and so to be more optimistic and see what these organizations are already doing. And that's the first thing that we would like to discuss today. And the second is what criticalities they are encountering today. And third is what they expect from a European legislation and how a European legislation can impact on business. As a matter of fact, supply chains today are global, are very long, are very articulated. And if we develop a legislation, we have to probably include, consider a legislation that includes all the players. And all the players cannot deal with the same sort of rules. We have big players, and today they are very well represented, but we also have a lot of small players, particularly in producing countries. So we hope that the European Commission and later on the Parliament and the entire European community will consider this and will work tightly with producing countries and governments. But let me start. I don't want to talk too much because it's a Friday afternoon, and I know that, or evening in Asia and morning in Colombia and South America. And I know you guys would like to go on holidays, or you like to enjoy your time outside. So let's start. And I would like to start with Daphne, who is in Amsterdam. Daphne, you have the chance to share your screen if you need. And I give the floor to you. And we're very curious to learn what you guys are doing all around the world to reduce deforestation at Wilmar.
Thank you, Pietro. Can everybody see the screen now?
Yes, very clearly.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for having us here and for having us sharing our story. We have a lot to share, and indeed, I will start with the positive. What went well, what is going well, but also where do we still need improvements, and then potentially at the end, where can the European Commission help us? Just want to make sure everybody can see this. Can you see my first slide, which is about Wilmar?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so very, very briefly for those who don't know Wilmar yet and who are not very familiar with our company, I would do a brief introduction. So Wilmar is founded in 1991. It's one of Asia's biggest agricultural companies. Headquarters is in Singapore. You see, we are in over 33 countries with 1,000 manufacturing plants and with more than 100,000 people working there. We are big in processing, as Pietro was saying, or amongst others, oils and fats. But we're also processing meal and flour, and we are big in oleochemicals as well. So just to show you, we're a big agri-commodity company, headquarters in Singapore, and I'm based in Europe, in the Netherlands. So maybe as a very short introduction, in the palm oil industry, processors and traders like Wilmar play a crucial role. And why is that? Because we are, let's say, sort of in the middle of the supply chain. So we are, let's say, the first buyer of the crude palm oil, and therewith we're pulling the requirements of the global markets. We are introducing them to the operations. So this is also one of the reasons why when Wilmar came with their sustainability policy back in 2013, why that had such an enormous impact. Just to give you an idea, if we talk about the palm oil market back then, but still Wilmar touches around 20% of that market. So when we came out with this policy, which was a real groundbreaking policy, you understand it had an impact both on the countries as on the supplier side. So what was this for kind of policy? Very briefly, you see, we are asking all our suppliers to comply with this policy, which is a no deforestation, no peat, no development on peatland, and a no exploitation policy. It is, as I said, it's not only for our own palm plantations, but it is mainly also for our third-party suppliers, right? And just to give you an idea, Wilmar has around 1,000 mills in our supply chain, and 90% of the oil we're processing comes from third parties, right? So this is a policy we had to implement in our supply chain back in 2013, and mainly with third-party suppliers, and that's where the challenge is. We came out with an update in 2019, and I will go into that very shortly in a bit. So if you have such a policy, right, you can announce such a policy, but the most important thing is that you implement it, right? Because just coming with a no deforestation policy doesn't mean so much. You need to implement it. Well, the first step is that you know where the product comes from. So you have to implement traceability. So if you look at what we have been already doing, we have full traceability. You see the little map there of all our refinery entities globally, and you can click on the little yellow dots and you find a full traceability report with all our suppliers in there, right? So people sometimes say it is not possible to do full traceability because our suppliers don't want to provide that kind of information. We had that same problem back then in 2013. But in 14, 15, this improved. In 16, we already had full traceability to the mill. So it is possible. It's just you just have to really put yourself to it. So the first step is traceability. Sorry, first step was the policy. Second step is traceability. And then the third thing you need to do is you have to monitor your supply chain, right? Because just knowing where the product comes from doesn't mean that much, because there can be still breaches with your policy. But now you want to monitor what they're doing and if your suppliers are in compliance with your policy. So we have 3 steps for that. The first step is that for new suppliers, we ask them to sign up to our policy or show us an equal policy that they're committed to. And they need to give us the concession maps of their plantation area, right? Not only from the one plantation which is going to supply to us, but from the whole group, right? Because we're monitoring on a group level. The second thing is that for the existing suppliers, and this started already back in 2013, we did a full risk assessment on all the suppliers on certain criteria. Then we risk rated those, and on the highest risk 10% of all the suppliers, we did on-the-ground assessments. Then we found, we came with the results, and we gave solutions to the respective mills. But what we also did is that we anonymized all these results and solutions and provided that to the rest of that region in a face-to-face workshop, right? So this is how we were teaching and introducing our suppliers back then to our new policy. Nowadays, we have a supplier reporting tool which goes out to all our suppliers. It's a self-assessment tool where they have to put in evidence that they are in compliance with our policy. It's a complete questionnaire they have to complete, and they have to put in evidence there. And we also ask, for instance, for land maps, and we're asking how many suppliers they have, and if their suppliers are smallholders or larger growers, and they need to provide us that. And then immediately you can see that at the bottom they get a report where it is indicated where they are in their journey towards full compliance with our NDPE policy. So it's not only information for us, it's also information for the supplier. And then thirdly, on the way how we monitor our supply chain is that we are engaged in a supplier group compliance program. This is a satellite monitoring program, which we have already since 2013 with a third-party supplier, with a third-party consultant called Earth Equalizer, and they are monitoring with satellites our full supply base in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea, and Cambodia. You see at the top right, you see a little bit of an example. You have a land map, you see deforestation, something is going on. We go then on the ground to investigate, we're contacting the supplier and go into the whole process. With this satellite monitoring, we monitor more than 20 million hectares from over 509 parent groups, which represents more or less more than 3,000 plantations. Just to give you an idea what we have been doing, what's going well. Then as a final step, we have a grievance mechanism with a full grievance procedure. And I want to highlight two criteria in our grievance procedure, which were in the update of our 2019 policy. So the first one is that we have a suspend first approach. And actually we're the only one in the industry, in the palm industry, who have this. And this means that after the 1st of January 2019, if there is deforestation detected, we immediately suspend this supplier. And then if the supplier wants to come back in our supply chain, they have to comply with re-entry criteria, right? And this means that they have to commit to recovery plans. So they have to, they have to recover for the past harm done. Right, and I think this is very important because with this, you're not only stopping immediately deforestation, but you're also recovering it, right? So that's a very important part. All the grievances which have been put on Wilmar are out there on our grievance list, which is also publicly available, and yeah, you can see below. So we have, for instance, suspended 1.8 million hectares palm oil plantation already from our supply chain, which is seven supplier groups since the 1st of January 2019. However, these hectares, the oil from these hectares and these groups are still in the supply chain of others. And they might still go into the products which we have in the supermarkets, although we suspended them. So there's a little bit of a mismatch there. I want to come back to that. Then also, what is very important is that we're not only looking at our suppliers and what we're doing and what they're doing, but also look at the current land which is still out there and which is potentially under risk. So Wilmar, together with Nestle, PepsiCo, and Procter & Gamble, and some conservation organizations, have started this Rimba Collective. The goal of the Rimba Collective is to protect and restore 500,000 hectares of forest in the coming 25 years in Indonesia to start with, right? Everybody end users can sign up to this to support it, and it's I would say it's a great way of showing how we can protect this land which is potentially under risk of being developed. Another important item which is very important if you want to show progress is that you're being transparent about it. So we have this on our website, everything what we're doing, and we have clear KPIs on our website. I leave this for you for later to look at. This is the journey we went through, and what is important to see is that in the beginning there's a focus on the no deforestation part, and in the end year, so more towards where we are now, there was more focus on the no exploitation part. So now I briefly want to focus on what needs to improve. So you just saw what we already did as a private company, what we achieved, but what needs to be improved? So again, if we look at these NDPE policies, I explained to you in the beginning, Wilmar was the only one with that with such a policy back in 2013. But nowadays, other processors and traders have adopted a similar kind of policy. And with that, we're covering 75 to 80% of the global palm oil market. And this is a great achievement by a private sector, right? So 75 to 80% of the palm production is already covered with an NDPE policy. However, there's always an however. In order to have a maximum impact of this collaboration, well, we can't say collaboration, but of this initiative, the palm oil sector needs to align on how to remove deforesters out of our supply chain. Secondly, the palm oil sector needs to align on how to collectively move towards a forest positive. Why do I say this? Because I just indicated that, you know, Wilmar is the only one which has this suspend first approach. Yeah, so while we immediately suspending suppliers when there is verified deforestation after 1st of January 2019, our peers continue to buy. Similar to the fact that we are asking for recovery plans if they want to come back. So if somebody did something wrong, you want to come back and you want to supply again to Europe, you have to recover the harm you did, the past harm you did on the ground, right? And this is where the palm oil sector needs to have the same approach, and that's currently not the case. What is important to mention here is, as I put at the bottom, private sector can't do this by itself. So the consuming countries, so for instance, Europe, they need to assist and provide alternative livelihoods for forest landowners, right? Because if a farmer has this forest land and we tell them you cannot develop it for palm or any other agricultural product, we need to give them some kind of alternative. Otherwise, they're selling it off, and somebody else with a little bit less feeling for sustainability will develop it anyway. Yeah, and just the little picture at the bottom is that I wanted to show that the 75 to 80%, which is covered with the NDPE policy, it does have an effect, and you see that in the reducing numbers of the deforestation in Malaysia and Indonesia. I took this from another webinar, and hence you see that I covered the phases which are in there. I will pause here for now. Am I still within the time, or did I go over?
Yes, you are Dutch, so you definitely in time, even if you are not. But thank you very much, Daphne. And just to stress what you have said a few seconds ago about your slide and the graphs that you mentioned, those were from the Global Forest Watch and the most recent results. So they are available on their website. And it's a report about the most recent data on deforestation in Southeast Asia, and astonishingly, Malaysia and particularly Indonesia have done an incredible job in reducing deforestation. Unlike what we read in the media, those data that are official data and are credible data from Global Forest Watch shown exactly that Indonesia and Malaysia from 2015 have dramatically reduced deforestation. So this is definitely a positive news. You said however, I need to move to Salvatore in Singapore. Salvatore, the floor is yours. I also have a couple of slides to show you, but I just want to somehow excite your curiosity, so stay here with us. I know it's hot outside if you're in Europe, but I have a couple of things to show you. I saw that there are a few members of the parliament that have just joined us, and so they're very welcome. European Parliament, very welcome here with us to discuss this incredible subject. Salvatore, the floor is yours. The mic, don't forget.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't see your presentation though.
Yes, we wait a minute.
We see all your presentation on the screen.
Yes, here it is, the right one. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Pietro, and thanks for inviting me and IRSG to this important webinar, also for RAB. My presentation will be slightly different because the International Rubber Study Group is, of course, not a manufacturing company. So we produce statistics, actually, and we are very much involved in on the sustainability topics for rubber, and in particular natural rubber in this case. ISG is an intergovernmental organization, so a long-standing intergovernmental organization founded in 1944 and since 2008 is in Singapore. We provide statistics, so we are an authoritative sort of source of statistics for the rubber industry, but also we act as a global platform where we put together producers, consumers, governments, associations, processors, traders and financial institutions, and research and development organizations and universities to discuss hot topics that might affect the rubber sector now and in the future. And sustainability is certainly one of those. Of course, we don't do this alone. We collaborate with many organizations. In particular, I want to mention the Global Platform on Sustainable Natural Rubber here, that is also based in Singapore, or ETRMA, that is the European Tire Rubber Manufacturers Associations, but also with other international commodity bodies like the International Cocoa Organization or the International Coffee Organization. We have our own sustainability agenda that is based on the UN sustainability goals. So what we have done is to write a narrative around these sustainable goals in relation to the rubber sector, and we are carrying out projects on specific topics, of which the last one has been on climate change and natural rubber systems. I would like to give you some information about the natural rubber market first, because maybe not everyone is aware that natural rubber is produced mainly in the tropical areas of the world, so Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. 88% of the production is actually located in Southeast Asia, with Thailand and Indonesia representing 56% of the global natural rubber production, and the total production is 13 million tons. Also, Malaysia is one of the main producers, although in Malaysia we have seen a switch from natural rubber to palm oil in the last years. Today, although, as I said, the production is still very much concentrated in Southeast Asia, this chart wants to point out also the importance of Africa. In particular, Côte d'Ivoire is today the fourth natural rubber producer in the world, and they have a goal to produce more than 1 million tons in the coming years. So this is an area of expansion that it's important, of course, for Europe because of the vicinity of the market, and that we have to take in full consideration when we speak about natural rubber sustainability. Where this natural rubber is used, mainly in the production of tires, about 71%, but 29% is going to other general rubber goods, and in particular gloves. In the last year and a half, gloves production has tremendously increased because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also condoms and also large numbers of industrial products. We were not supposed to speak about prices, but when it comes to natural rubber and sustainability, actually a price trend in the last 10 years has played a very important role, because since 2011, when we had this peak here, the trend of price was downwards, as you can see from this graph, with the only exception of a short period in 2016-17, and then again increased a bit now. But overall, the price is really not at a very satisfactory level, and in a moment we'll see why this is important. 90% of those 30 million tons of world natural rubber production that I showed earlier actually comes from smallholders. So these are farmers, families that are spread around mainly in Southeast Asia, but also, as I said, in other parts of the world, although in Africa and Latin America, there is a prevalence of large plantation compared of what we can see in Southeast Asia, actually. The low level of the prices has made farming activities not very much attractive, because it's seen as a labor-intensive activity. In natural rubber production, we are seeing a shortage of skilled labor forces. Because of the age, a lot of workers are leaving the sector, and actually they are not replaced by new one. Of course, there is a problem in terms of land use change. Production costs are increasing, and the productivity level is decreasing, and this is another big problem for us. We have a low level of participation of youth and women, especially in the upstream sector, and for farmers there is a severe limitations to access finances. I mentioned about climate change. Climate change has already an impact on natural rubber production, but it has the potential to shift both production and consumption of natural rubber. Then natural rubber sustains 40 million people around the world, with a supply chain generating more than $300 billion US. As I said, climate change is already impacting the sector, and these conditions will continue to be with us for a long period of time. So we need certainly to address this issue, and we understood that the natural rubber systems need to be adapted to the new climate conditions, and also that they have the potential to mitigate climate change risk. But it's important to understand how this mitigation could take place, what eventually natural rubber systems might replace, and how this mitigation activity could be conducted. So on this, we need some more studies to be done. We have organized together with other organizations, especially research and development organizations like CIRAD, C4, and IRDB, that is the International Research and Development Rubber Board, a workshop on the topic of climate change and natural rubber systems. This was in June 2020. Now the proceedings and an executive summary has been published and it's available on the IRSG website. And also with C4FTA, we have written a paper on sustainable development of rubber plantation in a context of climate change that address also some issues in relation to deforestation. Now, it's clear that no, the area or the lands dedicated to natural rubber has dramatically increased in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. But this increase, this expansion has happened with significant contrast. So we certainly had a global increase. But if you look at Malaysia, for instance, this also in Indonesia, we have had a kind in Malaysia reduction, in Indonesia a stagnation resulting from the competition with palm oil and also conversion of jungle rubber in Indonesia and clonal rubber to oil palm in Malaysia. We have had an increase in Thailand, especially in the north and northeast, in competition with cassava and rice, and a sharp increase in less traditional production countries and areas. Very recently, these trends has been stopped because of the level of price. We have to consider that for rubber trees to reach maturity, you need 7-10 years. So the low level of price since 2011. 2011 is here, but since then, as you can see, the activity related to new planting and also replanting of natural rubber has gone significantly down, and for the nearby future, let's say, this trend will certainly continue. So right now there is not much activity in terms of new plantations and also replanting that in some countries, as Indonesia, is very much needed. Is going very, very slowly. If we look at the world demand of natural rubber, now you can see how this continues to increase also after 2020, 2021, but the increase is going to be at a lower pace compared with the past. In natural rubber demand, China is the main consuming countries, and China is switching bit their systems from investment driven to consuming driven countries, so, and economy. So this is putting slowdown in the consumption trends, and also consumptions went significantly down in the US and in Europe. So we still are positive in terms of growth, but the growth will be less important than in the past. if we look at the trading.
Salvatore, sorry, I have to give you 1 minute because otherwise we're running.
I finished. So if we look at the trading of natural rubber, we can see that it is highly concentrated in Southeast Asia, and in Asia, including China, I would say, because a lot of production from Southeast Asia is directed to China, and the role here of Europe is relatively small. So to conclude, natural rubber is a strategic and essential raw material. To achieve a natural rubber zero deforestation supply chain, we need to implement holistically some people-centered actions. So we need mechanisms to provide to farmers an adequate level of income. We need to incentivize agroforestry and multi-crops farming. We need to implement technology transfer on the fields. We need to promote a framework for continuous education accessible to all farmers, especially youth, women, and ethnic minorities. We need clear policies and frameworks on land use and land use change. And we need also to promote a constructive dialogue among governments of producing and consuming countries and the private sector to achieve this zero deforestation natural rubber supply chain. So this dialogue, I think it's very important, because of course we governments can implement legislations, but we need really to understand that producing countries need support in developing policies for implement really zero deforestation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Salvatore, for your presentation. I'm sorry so much to cut you off, but you know, we have very short time. That's something I hate, but it's also my goal here to police your time. Let me instead move to Colombia. Just want to remind everybody that's following us that all the presentation is being recorded, so will be available on our website at competere.eu on the Sustainable Nutrition Initiative. That slide will be available there as well, so you don't need to take note if you want. And actually now with Raul Restrepo, that is the Director Ambiental at the Federation of Coffee Makers in Colombia. Raul is going to speak in Spanish, and we have a translator, that is Patricia. I want also to thank Patricia for being here with us. If you want to switch from language, on the bottom of your Zoom application, there is a little picture of the globe, and there you can play with the language, or you can enjoy listening to Raul in his beautiful and sweet Spanish. Raul, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Pietro, y muchas gracias a Patricia por esta labor de traducción. Quiero, en principio, saludar a todos los asistentes a este seminario. Una preocupación que compartimos todos en el mundo, y es lograr que estas cadenas de producción de elementos básicos no estén influyendo en la deforestación, y ese es un propósito nuestro. Les queremos compartir lo que ha sido para Colombia y para los caficultores colombianos su preocupación por el cuidado de los bosques naturales. Vamos a hablar de un producto del cual nos sentimos absolutamente orgullosos, es de nuestro café, como lo decimos en Colombia, el mejor café del mundo, y un café que se acompaña de dos atributos, el de la calidad y el de la sostenibilidad. Un poco de cifras grandes de lo que es la caficultura colombiana para que entendamos. El café se produce en el 55% de los municipios en Colombia, esos son 604 municipios, 539,000 personas, familias viven del café, y el café se produce a lo largo y ancho de toda la geografía colombiana. Estos puntos rojos que ven en el mapa son las fincas cafeteras donde se produce café. Tenemos 844,000 hectáreas de producción de café en Colombia, y eso significa, para que se den una idea, de que en Colombia, en promedio, cada familia caficultora tiene 1.3 hectáreas en café. lo que da una característica en Colombia de que el café es producido por muy pequeños campesinos. Nuestros muy pequeños campesinos generan, o el café más bien permite que 2.2 millones de personas vivan del cultivo del café. Eso significa más o menos el 25% de la población rural colombiana. La caficultura para Colombia genera 730.000 empleos directos y 1.6 millones de empleos indirectos. Esto significa también el 25% del empleo agropecuario en Colombia está basado en la economía del café. Y para efecto de las cifras económicas del país, el café responde por el 20% del Producto Interno Bruto agrícola, y el 12% del Producto Interno Bruto agropecuario. Y para que nos hagamos una idea también de la importancia del sistema de producción de café en Colombia, el sistema productivo en Colombia, según las investigaciones que hemos realizado, tiene una capacidad de captura anual de 4 millones de toneladas de CO2 equivalente sobre la base de la caficultura que teníamos entre los años 2015 y 2016, que fue cuando hicimos nuestra investigación. Y por último, para este contexto introductorio, los caficultores colombianos están organizados hace 94 años en su Federación Nacional de Cafeteros de Colombia. Esta es una empresa privada de los caficultores colombianos que de manera democrática y participativa logra incidir en las políticas públicas y en toda la estrategia de la cadena de producción de café en Colombia, buscando el bienestar de los caficultores colombianos. Nosotros entonces como federación tenemos un gran mandato y es lograr buscar el bienestar del caficultor, y el bienestar no se puede desligar de la palabra sostenibilidad. Es por eso que queremos compartir con ustedes muy rápidamente lo que estamos haciendo para prevenir la deforestación en la zona cafetera colombiana. Lo primero es que esto es una estrategia integral. La sostenibilidad se tiene que ver como una estrategia integral que incluye investigación científica y extensión rural. Recordemos que estamos trabajando con muy pequeños campesinos. Estas no son grandes empresas productoras de café, son pequeños campesinos, y a ellos hay que acompañarlos en su proceso productivo, y eso incluye sensibilización, capacitación, acompañamiento, concertación y algunos incentivos que les permitan planificar el uso del suelo para que en sus fincas cada cosa esté en su lugar. Donde están los bosques, sigan estando los bosques; donde esté la producción agropecuaria, siga estando la producción agropecuaria, y que se armonice el paisaje para que la biodiversidad esté en el paisaje armónicamente constituida. Y para eso desde la federación hemos establecido unos no negociables para producir en café en Colombia. Y esos no negociables, y para ser sostenibles en Colombia, es no usar plaguicidas restringidos, disminuir el uso del agua y evitar la contaminación en el proceso de beneficio, hacer y lograr el tratamiento de las aguas residuales y el saneamiento básico de todas estas familias que están en zonas rurales, lograr un manejo adecuado de residuos sólidos en las fincas, no a las quemas, no a la deforestación, incentivar la conservación de los bosques, principalmente los que están asociados a los nacimientos de las fuentes hídricas, lograr respetar los cauces de las quebradas con cerramiento, con proyectos y programas que les permitan a estos campesinos lograr proteger sus fuentes hídricas, reforestar. Los caficultores colombianos son los principales reforestadores en Colombia, son los que más árboles siembran en Colombia, construir corredores de conservación y de conectividad biológica que nos permitan proteger esos bosques que aún tenemos en las zonas cafeteras, proteger el suelo, y definitivamente no a la caza y no a la utilización de la fauna y la vida silvestre en cautiverio. Esos son los no negociables en Colombia. Algunas de las cifras que estamos haciendo con nuestros caficultores como Federación Nacional de Cafeteros, para que se den una idea, cerca de 20 millones de árboles son los que tienen los caficultores colombianos en el sombrío de sus cafetales, como esta foto que tengo en el fondo de mi pantalla. Esos son cerca de 298.000 hectáreas que en Colombia se producen bajo la modalidad de café con sombra. Y ahí vale la pena notar, no todo el café se puede producir con sombra, hay unas condiciones de oferta climática que obligan que el café se produzca sin sombra, pero la biodiversidad está en el paisaje. 300.000 hectáreas de café son producidos bajo sellos de sostenibilidad en Colombia y todos esos sellos exigen que no se presenten ejercicios de deforestación. Cerca de 34.000 hectáreas de plantaciones forestales han sido realizadas por los caficultores colombianos en los últimos años. La institución también ha reforestado cerca de 8.000 hectáreas hemos sembrado en Colombia buscando recuperar esas fuentes hídricas. Más de 20.000 hectáreas de bosques naturales hoy son objetos de acuerdos de conservación voluntaria, cerca de 5.500 hectáreas de herramientas de manejo de paisajes. Todos estos ejercicios de conectividad biológica los hemos llevado a los campesinos colombianos en su producción de café, utilizando más de 260 diferentes especies nativas con las cuales los caficultores colombianos vienen arborizando sus fincas. Y todo esto acompañado de tal vez lo más importante, así como les mencioné ahorita, la investigación y la extensión rural, los resultados de la investigación científica de la Federación de Cafeteros. Recordemos que en Colombia poseemos tal vez el centro de investigaciones de café más importante del mundo. Se ha preocupado por tener sistemas de producción sostenible. Hemos investigado en protocolos para producir especies nativas, metodologías de cómo incorporar biodiversidad en los sistemas productivos sin que los sistemas productivos pierdan productividad, unas estrategias muy grandes de educación y de sensibilización para lograr que los pequeños campesinos en Colombia, caficultores, sean sostenibles y produzcan el mejor café del mundo de manera muy sostenible. Y por último, para respetar mucho el tiempo y recuperar tal vez parte del tiempo, Pietro, quisiera mostrar esta diapositiva. Esta es la zona de producción de café en Colombia. En Colombia el café no está creciendo. En Colombia no hay aumento de áreas cultivadas en café, muy por el contrario, en los últimos 15 años, logré obtener los datos para esta gráfica de los últimos 7 años, el área en café en Colombia se está disminuyendo y nos estamos concentrando no en más área en café, sino más productividad. Más productividad es lograr que los caficultores colombianos con la misma o menor cantidad de área en café logren producir más cantidad de café y eso implica no tener que estar expandiendo la frontera de café. Y por último, volviendo al mapa, la zona de producción de café es esta y los motores de deforestación y las zonas donde se está dando la deforestación están acá, lo que nos puede dar la tranquilidad de que en Colombia el café no es el motor de la deforestación que hoy día lamentablemente se nos presenta en nuestro país y muy por el contrario nuestros caficultores tienen un gran compromiso. Y es que si se dieron cuenta, la Federación Nacional de Cafeteros nació en 1927, lo que quiere decir que en el 2027 vamos a cumplir nuestros primeros 100 años. Y como uno no cumple 100 años todos los días, queremos que cuando cumplamos nuestros primeros 100 años, el 100% de los caficultores colombianos tengan la producción bajo criterios de calidad y de sostenibilidad. Hemos identificado 34 criterios que nos permiten lograr esa sostenibilidad y entre ellos está la no a la deforestación, no a la quema y sí a la protección y conservación de la biodiversidad en zonas cafeteras. Con eso quiero reiterar nuestro compromiso con la sostenibilidad, nuestro compromiso con la protección de la biodiversidad que tenemos en Colombia, un país muy diverso y muy rico, y el compromiso de los caficultores colombianos y de su institución en que estamos pensando es en calidad y sostenibilidad y no en la deforestación. El café de Colombia no es un motor de deforestación en Colombia. Muchas gracias a todos por este evento. Pietro, espero haber sido muy concreto y haber recuperado un poco del tiempo que tenemos para este importante seminario. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Raul, so much. Gracias, and particularly for mentioning one key word that I think is crucial in producing sustainable food, and that's the word of productivity, how we can implement and how can we improve productivity, how can we improve managerial skills, how can we educate people to become more managerial. This is one of the biggest challenges in the commodities, how to attract skilled labor that can improve the productivity of their supply chains. Let me turn back now to Rome, where Massimo Ramunni has been kindly waiting for us. I still have to show a couple of my slides, so stay tuned here with us. Massimo, if you have slides, as I'm sure, please start sharing them. Massimo is the deputy director of Assocarta, that is the Italian association of paper producer, and of course one of the main driver of deforestation, but has turned now to promote and favor sustainability. So Massimo, thanks for being here with us. In Rome is a long weekend because of the St. Peter. That's actually myself, and I leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Pietro. I have to apologize, but I'm not in Rome, but I'm in Milan. But in any case, it's hot, and we are looking forward for the weekend.
Even hotter, even hotter.
Yeah, even hotter. And so after this trip around the world, so we are back here in Europe, and in particular, we talk about the Italian pulp and paper industry, and really happy to talk about that. And especially, I really thanks for putting high in the agenda the issue of deforestation, which is something that we have always to keep in mind. I have some slides, but I will not show all of them. I will not annoy you. I'm sure that Pietro will be more than happy to share with you all the slides and presentation after this event. We skip numbers. I would just want to highlight that Italy is the third paper producer in Europe. That means that we have an important role in this industry, but we also have an important responsibility when we talk about forest and fiber that we use. And I also want to remember that more than half of the paper that is used for packaging, also for food packaging, but not only food. And of course, the other two main uses of paper are information and culture, with books, magazine, newspapers, brochures, and things like that. But also paper is has an important role for health and hygiene, with handkerchief, napkins, and toilet paper, and kitchen rolls, and things like that. So this is a material that is present in many different moments of our day life. And this is probably also why when we discuss about deforestation, well, paper is one of the third things that comes in the mind of the people. And I think it's common to hear, oh, well, I don't want to use paper to save some trees. This is a quite common statement that we can hear, or that we can read in the tagline of many emails that we receive every day. And this is something that we have to consider, and I would like to show what we have done and what we are doing about that. Well, if we look at some numbers about the paper industry in Italy, but I think that similar number you can find also if you look at Europe in general. Well, this data that we collect every year since 20 years, so we have a long tradition in reporting about environmental performance of our sector. Well, 58%, but in 2020, we are already at more than 60% of the fiber that we use are coming from recycling. So recycling is the first step of forest management, I would say, that we have as an industry. And the second is we consider that remaining 40% of the fiber that we use, it's virgin fiber. Well, 85% of the fiber that we use come from forests which hold an FSC or PFC certified with a chain of custody. And furthermore, in Europe, we have legislation which ask any importer or producer of wood and paper products in Europe to assess with a due diligence that the wood is legally sourced from the country of origin. And then we also are strongly committed in sustainable production with environmental certification and continuous reduction of the emissions of the main environmental parameter. And if you look at packaging in particular, well, we recycle 80% of the packaging that we produce and place on the market. I will not show data about the environmental performance of the sector, but I will just stop on one slide, which is this one. We show a chart about the European forest. And you can see at the top of this chart, the net annual increment of the European forest. And here you can see that more or less Europe uses only half of the wood that grows every year. And if you look at this chart, you can also see that, well, on the left, there is the paper use of wood, which is, as you can see, a minor use of wood compared with energy and also wood product for building, furniture, and other wood objects. The other thing that I would like to show is that in the paper industry, there is also this important cycle, which is the recycling cycle, which is the biggest in the wood use. So the paper industry, as you can see, is a minor use of wood, but it's the biggest recycle of fibers and wood fibers. And this is also a bit funny because, I mean, we are minor use, but many times we are addressed are those that are more responsible for deforestation. While if you look at this graph on the right side, well, energy use of wood is by far the biggest use of wood in Europe and in the world, but this is normally considered as green energy. So have a completely different perception, even if the material and the sourcing of the material is the same. And let's go to consumer perception exactly. Well, we have now seen that for many years we were the bad guys, those who cut the trees. But indeed, the perception is a bit changing, especially when we talk about packaging. Now, consumers, citizens in Italy and in Europe are understanding that paper and board packaging is better for many different environmental aspects, like compostability, and which means also biodegradability, better for environment, easier to recycle. While in the competition between material in packaging, glass is considered better by 50% of the citizen for as it considered better for reuse and giving a better protection. And paper score at the highest level also when it's about cost, but also the fact that paper is considered light and easier to open and to store and to manage. But in this survey that is dated 2020, so it's 1 year ago, what is interesting is also that 53% of the citizens are ready to pay more for a sustainable packaging. And this is a good news, because I think that the citizens, the consumer, are the real driver of the process for inclusion of sustainability in all our process, all our products. But this is only one side of the coin. There is also the other side of the coin about the consumer perception. And this is about the forest. Well, 82% of the Italian citizens believe that European forest area is reducing size, which is not true. And it's by far higher than the perception of the European average, which is 64%. Well, in Italy, we have a particular situation, is that we are not using our forests. We are really far from our forests. We are a large importer of wood from all around Europe, but we don't use our own forests. Forests in Italy are increasing in area, but for abandon, not for management. And that means that also the population has lost the contact with forests. So we, as Italians, we don't realize that we have such heritage and we don't use it. And therefore, we are much more impressed by the news that we hear about deforestation all around the world. And we think that this is something that is happening also here in Italy or in Europe, which is not the case. But there is also good news, because all this attention that in Italy we have about the theme of deforestation brings also the consumer to be more pay more attention to this. For example, we have seen with this study that 62% of these Italian citizens pay attention to label related to forest certification when purchasing paper product, which is a huge number, and also this is much higher than European average. But still, we can see that paper is seen as responsible for deforestation. In the graph you can see on the bottom, well, we ask, sorry, it's in Italian, but we ask which is the activity that has the higher role in deforestation. Well, the first one on the bottom is the infrastructural growth, the growth of towns. This is considered as the most relevant actor. And then we have palm oil production and pulp and paper industry. So we share this bad perception with the colleagues of Wilmar, with Daphne. And it's a bit funny to hear, looking also at the graph that we have seen at the beginning, that, for example, energy is not considered as so much relevant, even if it's the largest use of wood. So we still have to work on the perception of the consumer. We have more information on what is really happening, because we can, and Europe is an example, we can have a responsible source of forest, we can invest in forest management, and this will be our source of material for providing forest-based, bio-based material for the future. We calculated that looking at just at packaging, the potential of paper to substitute plastic packaging, for example, is about 25%. 25% of plastic can be replaced with bio-based, forest-based material. But what we need is to continue on this path, on investing in responsible sourcing, which for us means recycling as much as possible, and forest management, sourcing of fiber only from forest management. On that, we have a commitment as an industry in Italy and in Europe to reach the 100% sourcing from forests that are certified FSC or PFC, and we are already near to this target. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Thank you for bringing up some interesting point. First of all, I know that the paper industry is also involved in the single-use plastic, and I was actually reading an interview this morning about that very much that interesting issue that in a way has to do with sustainability as well. And thank you for mentioning the perception of consumers and the point of certification. And as a matter of fact, there is a big discussion, and will be, I think, a big discussion for the next months and probably years, on what consumers will see on the package and what can work in order to inform consumer, make them very much aware. And this is an interesting topic that we'll be addressing in the next webinars of the sustainable nutrition. Before just doing a very quick round of talk on a specific question, let me just share. Let me just share my screen, because I have just one thing. Since you talk about perception, I just want to show you something that we have done here at Competere. Here we go. Because we put together a survey online, a very short version, and we just distributed this survey to members of the European Parliament, since they are going to discuss about sustainability, and they're going to discuss about protecting biodiversity, and of course how to achieve zero deforestation. We share with them a couple of very basic questions, asking them which are the deforestation drivers. I'm not going to read them all because we don't have time. We have asked them towards zero deforestation players, like who are the players that can make a difference in enabling policy for reducing deforestation. And then we also talk about deforestation certification. So asking them what is or which is the best certification to inform and to make consumers aware and make them make aware choices. This survey is open to everybody. Actually, we sent it to members of parliament, but it's also open to everybody. You can read it here. And what I will do, I will share with you the link in the chat, so shortly you can read it. And as well, this will be available on our website. So please feel free to fill in the survey. Just tell us your idea. It's an anonymous survey, of course, and we will see what are the results. And we will also communicate to you very shortly who and what the European members of the parliament think about deforestation drivers and certification. And this is a very interesting point to get an idea of who will shape Europeans policy making. These are some of the results that we are getting. Still, we only got 30 responses from members of parliament, but as you said, the questionnaire was sent out a few days ago. And when we talk about the driver of deforestation, the first driver, according to member of parliament, is soy plantation, cattle, agricultural, palm oil, cocoa, and so on. And when it comes to the ruling, of course, members of the European Parliament thought that the best driver in reducing deforestation can be the European Union. But very interesting when you talk about certification, according to members of the European Parliament, private sustainable certification can be one of the solutions. But please help us in sharing this survey with as many people as possible, and also push and put some pressure to your member of parliament, European member of parliament, just to get an idea of what they think. But now let me move very briefly to a second round of talk to address the question that actually has to do with the European Commission, the European Union in general, and the European Parliament, and what they will do. So my question to all of you, and I please try to be short because we're already out of time, is, so very few minutes to each of you, and I will start again with Daphne in Amsterdam, is what do you expect from the EU, and what kind of criticalities the next European policy can have for the industry? The mic, Daphne.
You know, I can talk for hours and nobody's listening to me. Thank you. I was actually positively surprised that you shared this question with us, because very recently we got noticed about the following. So you asked us, what's the expectation, or so what's the EU planning? So what we heard is that in a recent, as you can see at the top, in a recent panel discussion, Deputy Director General DG Envy confirmed that due diligence obligations will be stricter for products from countries with high deforestation rates. So that would be for all of us in this webinar. So due diligence obligations will be stricter for products from countries with high deforestation rates, and she also raised the possibility of a strict prohibition from the highest risk areas. This is clearly a very, I would say some kind of a very extreme statement, right? Which will affect everybody here in the webinar. So what is our biggest fear on this? That there's going to be a focus on high risk geographical areas or high risk products. And this displaces the problem. Why? Because people will go out of these areas to other areas, or they will go out of the, let's say, high risk products into other products. And this is why I put in this little table here, this little pie chart. For instance, if people would go out of palm oil, which is on the left chart, the red item, which only uses 7.4% of all the land use, and they will go, for instance, in, in sunflower, you will see on the right-hand side that the return from sunflower is very low in comparison to the piece of land that they need. You see, they even needed slightly more land, but they're currently using slightly more land, but the productivity is so much less. So when you got out of palm oil into another oil, you potentially need much more land, and you will just do that in another region, right? Because if the EU, for instance, says that Indonesia is a very risky region, well, maybe palm oil will just go to, who says, Africa, right? The same with the products. People will go out of products into other products. And what will happen then is that you're penalizing the good suppliers who are either in a risky product or in a risky area, right? You can have super sustainable producers who are, you know, fully certified, try to do the very best thing, did full investment in that, never cut the trees around their concessions. And still you say you have a very bad product, right? Or you say, I'm sorry, but you are in the wrong region. This gives the completely wrong message to these suppliers, right? And basically what we do is we discriminate them. Also, we need to think of the fact that then there's no incentive for these kinds of suppliers to continue their sustainability practices, right? Because if they're not getting a reward, if we don't buy their products, why would they continue with their sustainable practices, right? They can just go back to unsustainable practices. So what is our recommendation? Well, it's follow the example of the palm oil industry. You know, we see that this no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation policy, or a strict sustainability policy with the suspend first approach, with the recovery plans, that it works, right? Currently, it covers 75 to 80% of the palm production. However, we also need to make sure that the EU is implementing level playing field policies. So policies on the mandatory due diligence, great, because this helps us. But don't single out certain products. And I think everybody here in the panelists agree with that, right? If you want to do due diligence, do it on all the products. And what is very, very important, and has been said in this webinar as well, partner with production countries. We need to focus on transformation on the ground and not just cleaning up the EU supply chain, right? If we suspend certain products, certain regions, you're cleaning up the EU supply chain and you're not improving the situation on the ground. And then very finally, 1 minute. We're always saying, for instance, palm is a high risk product. Very briefly, look at this graph. The big circle is the, let's say, 70 million ton of palm production globally. On the left-hand side, you see the Malaysian production, which is around 26%. On the right-hand side, in the pink, the bigger circle, it's the Indonesian production, which is around 60%. You see that both countries have their own obligatory certification schemes. You see that almost all the Malaysian production is complying with the Malaysian sustainability palm oil certification scheme, and that the Indonesian one is let's say half, a little bit less, and is growing. And this again, RSPO is the sustainability standard for palm oil. You see, it's not covering all of the palm oil, but if we build partnerships with Malaysia and Indonesia, we can grow these blue and yellow circles to their full volumes, and with that you really reach size, right? And it does, and sustainability or certification doesn't continue to be a very small niche product. This is where I like to pause.
Thank you so much, Daphne, for sharing this and for your strong point on the commitment to engage with producing countries and not to discriminate, and actually pushing them to not invest in sustainability or go somewhere else where there are no sustainability standards. First of all, I would also like to share this with you, that if we start this kind of policies, that of course we should encourage, not discourage. And if we discourage, then we risk that in Europe we will just eat and drink air and dirty water. So we don't want that. So it's better we find engaging policies and not discriminatory policy. I definitely agree with you. Now I will ask Salvatore and then Raul and then Massimo to be very short. Daphne took most of our time. So Salvatore, it's your turn. Thanks.
Yeah. Just 2 points. First of all, I want to say once again that natural rubber is essential in the sense that there are no substitute for natural rubber today. So basically, if we want to drive cars or taking aeroplanes, no, we need to have natural rubber production somewhere in the world. I agree with Daphne that it's important a collaboration, because sustainability, from my point of view, is an environmental issue, but if we don't solve the economic and social issue, I think it's going to be very difficult, especially in a market where, as I said, 90% of the production comes from smallholders. And also, I think that, yes, the role of national governments is important, but in countries like Indonesia or Malaysia, it's maybe more important the role of local governments more than national governments. So we need to have in place there some kind of coherent policies that are linked one to another, because otherwise on the ground it will be difficult to achieve zero deforestation activity and sustainability. So the EU regulation might be an incentive for producing countries to further develop sustainability in the natural rubber sector, but it is important that it is not perceived as punitive, or no, we need really that governments work together on this.
Thank you, Salvatore. Raul, the floor is yours. Just to tell you that on my WhatsApp is very hot because people started discussing about the best coffee. And they actually, at the end, they argued that Italian coffee is the best. I told them it's not produced in Italy. They said, but we make the best coffee. You can be the best in Colombia, but then we have to make it actually. Floor is yours, Raul.
Oh, gracias, Piero. No, la respuesta para esa pregunta es, ¿cuál es el mejor café del mundo? El que le gusta a uno. Y ya listo. Ya con eso queda solucionada la discusión. Yo quiero ser muy breve, me quiero unir a los planteamientos de Daphne, los compartimos. Creo que ella ha logrado hacer una muy buena respuesta a tu pregunta, Pietro, y desde Colombia creemos que una restricción desde la Unión Europea que no considere lo que ella ha planteado es gravísima. Yo quisiera retomar lo que dice Salvatore, pero cambiar el orden. La sostenibilidad para nosotros, primero, es la económica, porque es que si no está la sostenibilidad económica, las demás no funcionan, ni la social ni la ambiental. Con hambre no se logra reducir la deforestación. Aguantando, el principal motor de la deforestación es el hambre y la pobreza. Entonces, claramente aquí lo que queremos dejar un mensaje es que tenemos que lograr revisar desde los países, desde la Unión Europea, desde toda la cadena de suministro, el ingreso justo para los pequeños productores. Eso es fundamental. Y una invitación muy grande que les queremos hacer a toda la Unión Europea es que conozcan el modelo colombiano, que antes de cualquier reglamentación, que antes de cualquier restricción a los productos, conozcan muy bien los modelos de cada país. La invitación la hago a cada país, porque no necesariamente puedan estar castigando un sector y ese sector no es el que está ocasionando la deforestación. Entonces van a perjudicar a cadenas que son sostenibles, la deforestación va a seguir y la Unión Europea va a creer que salvó el mundo y no lo hizo. Entonces, eso es como los únicos cortos mensajes. Vuelvo y repito, comparto lo que dijo Salvatore y lo que ya dijo Daphne. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Massimo. And turning to you so we can stay within the hour and a half.
Yeah, thanks. And well, first of all, allow me to say that I'm really happy of the result of the survey that you have just presented us. It seems that the European parliamentarian has just a better perception of paper compared with the Italian citizens, and I'm really happy of that. Well, regarding the role of Europe, I have to say that paper is already highly regulated in Europe. We have done many things before regulation. Just for example, for certification, we are investing that since 20 years before a legislation came, and we will see if something will arrive. Also on due diligence, we committed to check for the legality of wood. Before then, we had the regulation, and since 2020, we had also a European regulation that forced any import of wood to check for legality of sourcing. And but we also have, for example, the eco-label that's require mandatory sustainable sourcing of fiber for products in Europe. We have the green public procurement in many countries that ask for that or for recycled content. So I think that we are already highly regulated, and in any case, we have done even more than what asked by the EU regulation. I have only two comments. One is about the regulation on due diligence. Well, I think there is a big hole in this regulation because it covers wood, it covers pulp, it covers paper, but it doesn't cover paper products which are printed. That means that you can really, really easily, with a click of a mouse, send a PDF all around the world and print a book everywhere, and then have it back in Europe without being checked for the legal source of wood. And this is a big hole in the regulation, and this is the first thing that we asked to the European Commission and European Parliament, to include all the paper product in the due diligence regulation 995/2010. And the second point is that we strongly believe that we need more sustainable, but also more bio-based products. And we hear in the last weeks some rumors about the Commission thinking at a regulation or something, a legislation limiting the use of wood to long-lasting products. I think this is a big, big mistake. Also considering that we need biodegradable, compostable material, especially for fast-moving consumer goods, because we need to be sure that product like paper is recycled, but in any case that has also to be biodegradable and compostable. So forest products are needed also for this kind of uses.
Thank you, Massimo. And certainly it's about the European Commission work, the Parliament later on. It's going to be a long journey and a very exciting journey, I would say, where we should be the protagonist. But so today you have been the protagonist, or the supply chains have explained what they are doing beyond any possible current legislation. So congratulations, guys, for the work you're doing. You're often very under attack, but today I can say that you got your spot, and it's very important, and please keep on working in this direction. That's why I want to thank you. Before, I want to thank all the audience that has been online despite being a Friday and a very hot Friday here in Europe, very late in Asia, very early morning in Colombia. So thank you very much. And let me thank, first of all, Patricia for the translation, and that Daphne, Salvatore, Raul, and Massimo. Our next webinar will be on the Nutri-Score. This is a gigantic discussion in Europe that will have implication on many commodities as well. Don't forget that this event has been recorded, so will be available on our website together with some short clips. The entire presentation that you guys have seen today and have presented, and there will be some talking points that have been recorded. I also want to thank my team at the Sustainable Nutrition platform for the incredible work they keep doing, and I want to wish you a great summer if you're on summer, or in Colombia and Argentina, I guess you are not in the summer mood but in the winter mood. So for everybody, enjoy the weekend, and hopefully see you soon in July or later on in September. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Bye, Daphne. Bye, Raul. Ciao, Salvatore. Ciao,
Bye.
Massimo.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, Patricia. Thank you so much.
Gracias,
Bye-bye.
Patricia.
Bye. Ciao. Thanks for staying longer. Eh?